Hello everybody, Andrew Field here. Haven't made a video in a long time, so just want to get into it. With the war in Ukraine still going, the U.S. reopened its embassy in Kiev, which is good news. There were a lot of people that visited President Zelensky, including House Speaker Pelosi, Representative Adam Schiff, First Lady Joe Biden, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, GOP delegation. So that was all good news. Russia cut gas to Poland and Bulgaria, which was, I think, a kind of a threat because they were saying until payment was delivered to Russia. The UK and US sent long-range rockets to Ukraine, which was good news because it was kind of a step up in weapons delivered. The EU was talking about proposing phasing out Russian oil by the end of the year. That would be hard, I think, because some European countries take a lot of Russian oil, but that would be a big step, along with cutting Cyberbank, which is Russia's largest lender, out of SWIFT international payment system, which would be another big blow to them. The last number I saw was that more than 5.8 million refugees have fled Ukraine. Mariupol, which was a city that was in a really bad state where they couldn't get food or water and were kind of stranded in Ukraine. The civilians were thankfully evacuated. Russia's reportedly spending $900 million a day fighting in Ukraine right now, which hopefully between that and the sanctions will really cripple Russia's economy. The UK donated hundreds of mobile generators to Ukraine, which is really important. Russia attacked actually they torched a village outside of Kharkiv, which is Ukraine's second largest city. And although Russia has been attacking key cities in Ukraine, they've mainly been targeting eastern Ukrainian cities, and they've actually won some battles and taken some cities in eastern Ukraine. Finland and Sweden formally applied to join the NATO alliance. There was a small brewery that made a NATO-themed beer in Finland to celebrate their bid to join NATO, which I thought was cool. There was a Russian soldier who was convicted of war crimes and got served a life sentence for killing a civilian. There are several businesses that left Russia in the past couple of months. Big names include Starbucks and Nike. Former President Bush misspoke, saying the war in Ukraine was unjustified. In Iraq, he said Iraq instead of Ukraine. Biden went on a tour in Asia, meeting with South Korean president and going into Japan as well. He's in a tour in Europe right now, actually, talking about the war in Ukraine and the state of the global economy and inflation and all that. Biden did say, though, that the U.S. would defend Taiwan militarily, which doesn't make sense that he's saying we would get militarily involved against China with Taiwan, but we didn't get involved with Ukraine against Russia, and it just doesn't seem that consistent. The U.S. A while ago passed the milestone of 1 million deaths from COVID, which was a sad milestone to pass. President Biden had the annual correspondence dinner not too long ago, and that was important because it didn't happen for 3 years. There was a draft of the Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade that got released a while back, and it seemed like it was legitimate because Chief Justice Roberts ordered a probe into the leak, and it turned out to be true because Roe v. Wade, I believe 2 days ago, was overturned. The case was officially called Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization. There were immediate effects of the ruling. An abortion clinic in Houston had to immediately shut down following the ruling, and a lot of people are frustrated because the majority of Americans wanted Roe v. Wade and the protections it had, because Roe v. Wade made abortion a constitutional right, and it is no longer a constitutional right because it has been struck down. I believe it's the first constitutional right to be overturned, and the precedent Roe v. Wade set was around 50 years, so it was a really big Supreme Court decision. I personally believe that abortion is something that shouldn't happen unless, but I'm not an extreme on that. I think that abortion is okay in case of incest, rape, and also if the mother is dying and they need to save the mother. But I understand why a lot of people are frustrated because now there's going to be 13 states that will ban nearly all abortions within 30 days. And that means that if you live in those states, most likely you're not going to be able to get an abortion and you are going to have to move states, or sorry, not move, but you'll have to travel to another state to try and receive an abortion. The I guess, good side of this Supreme Court case is that the Democrats didn't have a lot going for them in the midterms and they were likely going to get killed by the Republicans. But the Supreme Court is giving Democrats a bit of hope between this ruling, reversing Roe v. Wade, and its recent rulings on gun control, the lack of. So I'm saying that although I know it's getting a lot of people angry, and that is actually something you want ahead of the midterms so that a lot of people will vote and probably vote Democrat. So we'll see how the midterms go. Leaders of the UK, Canada, France, and New Zealand denounced the reversal of Roe v. Wade. There's been a lot of protests nationwide about it. So yeah, it's a very big deal that and I think people are going to be upset about it for a long time. President Biden responded that women should have the right to choose. He was saying that it should be codified in the Congress. Congress can codify Roe v. Wade into law, but currently they don't have the votes because even though the Senate technically is Democratic majority, there are Joe Manchin and another senator in the Democratic Party who are not very consistent with voting with the Democratic Party, and it's true that the Democrats don't have the votes to be able to make it into law right now. Press Secretary Jen Psaki left as White House press secretary. There was a deal that Elon Musk bought Twitter for $44 billion that went through, but it was actually put on hold because Elon was saying what percent of Twitter accounts are fake. He wanted to know. But I think the Twitter deal should not go through. I don't think Elon Musk should be able to control Twitter. But that is just my opinion. There were primary elections that happened. There are more that are going to happen in the next couple of days. But with some of the previous primary elections, there was a guy named Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman who won his primary election, and he actually suffered a stroke and was in the hospital when he won. Thankfully, they said that there was not any cognitive damage, so that was really good news. State Senator Doug Mastriano became a GOP nominee in Pennsylvania, and the big news was that incumbent Representative Madison Cawthorn, who was controversial in his last term, was defeated in his primary by State Senator Chuck Edwards. Despite getting endorsed by Donald Trump, that was a big deal. You don't usually see incumbents getting defeated in a primary. Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt signed into law prohibiting non-binary gender markers on birth certificates. A judge ruled that Trump administration rule Title 42 of quickly deporting migrants is upheld by a federal judge. Let's see. There was incidents going on in Libya after the parliament approved Prime Minister Fathi Bashagha was denied ability to take over the government because a rival administration continued to hold power. So that was a pretty scary situation there. There's been a nationwide shortage of baby formula, and there's still been supply chain issues that have been going on. So hopefully that will be fixed in time, but that is a big issue right now. There's been an outbreak of monkeypox worldwide. It hasn't been a huge outbreak. There's been 3,300 cases in, I think, about a month and a half worldwide. In the U.S., 172 only cases, so It's not a big outbreak, but it is something to look at. There was a case between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, which was a big case with millions of viewers, and Johnny Depp won the case. So that was a big deal for him, since he has been kind of shunned out of acting for a long time, and this could possibly give him a chance to go back into acting and get some starting roles again. I apologize for not covering this earlier, but there was a mass shooting in Texas, Uvalde, Texas, about a month ago, where 19 children and 2 adults were killed. It was a really terrible mass shooting that happened in a Texas elementary school right before school was about to be out. A husband of a teacher killed also died of a heart attack, leaving the children with no parents. It was really ridiculous what happened, because this shooter, who had body armor, tons of ammo, multiple assault rifles, I believe AR-15s, went into the school, was able to get in through an open door, and police arrived on the scene and waited outside and inside the school, because the shooter barricaded himself inside the school in 2 classrooms. And officers got into 19 officers were in the school for an hour, but they refused to get in. And they say that the commanding officer incorrectly called the active shooter a barricaded subject, that no kids were at risk. But unfortunately, he was very wrong, and the shooter killed the kids in the 2 classrooms before eventually they went in and killed the shooter. It's just really horrible to hear the shooting. There was a 9-year-old killed that was already talking to colleges, seemingly having a bright future ahead of her. And these kids just obviously had so much life left in them. And what happened was really horrible and should not be a precedent. But unfortunately, we just see too many of these mass shootings. There's already been hundreds of mass shootings this year alone, and we're only halfway through the year. And some children called 911 for help, and the unfortunate thing was that they were in the school and did not rush in and help them. I think the police did a very bad job and were rightly called out for failing these kids and allowing so many of their kids to die. And I can't imagine what their families were going through. So my thoughts were with them, but obviously we need to do more than thoughts and prayers. The shooter was actually only 18 years old, and the only good thing about it was that the shooting was that he was killed as well. And he bought 2 assault rifles for his 18th birthday, showing how easy it is for young adults even to not only get guns, but assault rifles that are very powerful weapons that should only be used for war. A mother ran into the school to save 2 kids. Matthew McConaughey apparently was born and raised in Uvalde, Texas, so he spoke on the school shooting. There was actually another shooting that happened around the same time, Buffalo supermarket, that killed 10 people. The shooter survived, but he could face a death penalty and should face a death penalty. He was charged with federal hate crime and firearms offense, which was good. The U.S. classified Brittany Griner, which was a U.S. athlete that was detained in Russia, as wrongfully detained. Elon Musk was talking about reversing the ban on Trump on Twitter. And the Supreme Court, around the same time that they reversed Roe v. Wade, reversed a concealed carry limit law in New York, which is actually disgusting, especially with all these mass shootings. And we're trying to push for more gun control. They reversed a very big gun control law in New York, the biggest city in America. So it's really sending the wrong message, and it's going to make it easier for people to get guns in New York. And now that that law was repealed, other gun laws, I think specifically with concealed carry, but those can also be challenged and maybe brought down as well. So that was a very bad ruling. Senators reached a bipartisan deal on gun control. The Senate, I think, was the hardest part, but actually, I think 10 Republicans signed onto the law, and Biden signed it into law, which was really watered down. There wasn't a lot on the bill, but it was still the most significant gun reform bill in 30 years. And one of the things it does is enhances background checks of young gun buyers of 18 to 21 years old. So I think it was a really good step, but I think there is a lot more that needs to be done. And I think it's important that people stay loud about gun control and Congress to do more than it's done. January 6th committee has started, and they have spent many days interviewing, or not interviewing, but having people testify. They have a lot of footage. Some of the footage was never released before, so they do have a lot of material. And the main point they want to do in these public hearings is placing blame squarely on Trump. And Trump's former campaign manager, William Stepien, was set to testify, and then I know he didn't, but I'm not sure if he will later on in the trial. But if he does testify, that would be a big thing, since he was a part of Trump's inner circle. Bill Barr and Ivanka Trump said they knew Trump lost the election, and the hearings focused then on Trump's efforts to, claim fraud after the 2020 election and stir things up. And he also pressured state officials to try and overturn the Democratic results that happened. Some local officials testified about their choice to follow Constitution over party and not to try to overturn the 2020 election. And these are the people that saved our democracy in 2020. So I'm thankful for them. I'm thankful that they're testifying and sharing their stories to the public, so the public gets a better sense of what really happened. So that's the video. Thank you all for watching, and have a good rest of your day. Thank you.